This is the one time maybe I'm glad my wife isn't here, because we've been having this debate about in our house as to whether to decorate for Christmas before or after Thanksgiving. We've always been the day after Thanksgiving, but my wife's been insistent, like we need to get moving on it, and this would have just been salt in the wounds. I told you! But we'll have to make sure to get her up here next time, but this is beautiful. Thank you very much. And thank you all for being here. I'm really very much appreciative of the fact that you're here and that you're engaged in what's going on in our country. It's a very exciting time to be involved, I can say. My wife and I were just talking the other day as we just finished the longest shutdown in U.S. history. How the word unprecedented just doesn't seem to have the same ring that it used to have, at least for this job that I'm in at the moment. It seems like every week is a new unprecedented thing that we're dealing with in our nation. But it speaks to the times that we're in and how critical of a moment that we are in our country. We are facing a number of challenges, and as I told a few people just a few moments ago, my role where we're at right now, it's wonderful to look at the White House and see all the great stuff that the president's doing. Our job in Congress is to codify those things and to make sure that this season that we're in right now isn't just a reprieve on all the existential issues that we were facing as a nation. This has to be a turning point for our country. And that's going to require us in Congress codifying a lot of things that are happening, making the long-term decisions and things that need to happen, and really just doing what needs to be done to push this country where it's going. Now, it can be a frustrating place to be in D.C. There's no doubt about it. As much as it's been done in 10 months, I still want us to do more. And we're looking at the geopolitical issues with China. We're looking at beef prices. We're looking at a lot of the other different existential issues. We still have a debt crisis that's facing our nation that we're involved in pushing back on and solving. So all these things are still real issues. November, we have to remember, wasn't the solution. November was the opportunity. And so when I'm talking to other members up there, all November was the opportunity. Now, it was a big opportunity because we were, anytime I get discouraged, I just think to where we were a year ago in our country, where it seemed like all hope was lost, where it seemed like we were headed down to a despotic end, where we saw the government doing things we would have never imagined happen in this country, to control and to just be a weight and a burden on the people in so many nefarious ways. Even your tax dollars are being used to undermine this country, and we were forcing the American people to pay for the demise of their own country, which I thought was just the worst thing, the worst of the worst. I mean, it's just inconceivable to think that we would force the American people to do that. So we turned the corner on a lot of fronts. And to that point, I just want to say thank you, for being people who were engaged. Thank you for being people who didn't lose hope. Thank you for being people who continue to press in, who believed our nation was worth saving, who thought it was worth the fight to stay in and to give us this opportunity that we have now. And so for that, I just want to say thank you to you. You deserve a hand yourself. So I'll give you one. Where we are right now, again, of course, interesting times. We just came out of the longest shutdown ever. It was a shutdown that didn't really need to happen. As many of you, I think, know by this point, it was the Dems basically. I'm not a big CR fan, first of all. What we're supposed to be doing is passing appropriations bills. The way it's designed to work is that there's 12 areas of the government that each have their own appropriations bill. We work to pass those bills, and they fund the areas of government, and then we work on that. What typically has happened is every year we get to September 30th and the federal, Congress puts up its arms like, oh my gosh, September 30th is here. That's the end of the fiscal year. They're shocked and surprised that September 30th is once again on September 30th. And what are we going to do? I don't know. Who knew this was coming? And so a CR gets passed, and then a CR gets passed, and then you get to Christmas Eve or Christmas Eve, and that's where you get this massive omnibus bill because everybody's trying to get out of town and nobody's read it, and it's thousands of pages long, spends trillions of dollars, and that's where the recipe to getting to $38 trillion in debt. And so we've been working through a number of different things that I've been involved in, from what got dubbed as a speaker's fight, which was really about the rules a couple terms ago, to many of the other things we've been doing, to what I call rewrite the muscle memory of Congress. And so I wish we could turn this thing on a dime, but we can't, but we've come a long way. And just to the point of how the funding's happening, one of the big wins of what just happened in the shutdown is that we avoided the omnibus. Because even as they were talking about coming out, the discussions were like, well, we'll pass the CR to mid-December. And I'm like, I've seen this play before. That's not going to work. That just puts us right back into the Christmas omnibus. And so coming out of that, it's unfortunate that it happened. Unfortunate that the Dems wouldn't support their own legislation, because that's really what it was, to buy us a couple weeks to get the negotiation on the funding done. But we were able to pass 3 of the 12 appropriations bills. So we got the government open. We passed 3 of the 12 bills already. And then we have the space to January 30th to continue negotiations on the rest of them. I'd like to say we'd get all 12 passed. I don't know if that's going to happen, but we're making headway. And the big win there is for every appropriations bill we pass, that means any future CRs that happen, and again, not the ideal way of doing it, but at least now those CRs will be pointing back to Republican pieces of legislation, if that makes sense. And so one of the big wins is a couple terms ago, I was put on the Appropriations Committee, and yeah, it's a little boring and wonky, but I'm on the Appropriations Committee, which is the committee all the dollars go through, and then I'm on the Oversight Committee, which is the investigatory side. And so these are the 2 committees with jurisdiction over the whole government. I happen to be on both. To my knowledge, I'm the only member of Congress on both. And so we're able to investigate on one side the federal government, and then we're able to work on the funding side and take what we find over here and turn it into legislation. So the history of the Appropriations Committee was, in DC, they would say, okay, there's Republicans and there's Democrats and then there's appropriators. Literally, they have a different title if you're on the Appropriations Committee. So if you're in DC, they would see you and say, like, he's an appropriator. And I always remind everybody, I don't consider myself an appropriator. I consider myself a missionary to the Appropriations Committee. So, as a fiscal conservative, I was really concerned about going in, because that was known to be the committee that spends all the money. And there is a right thing to spend money on. And so what's happened really since we've been on the committee, along with the good work of the committee, is we've begun to turn what was these really DC bills, they would call them bipartisan bills, but it really was left or left light, if that makes sense. And now we're passing Republican bills out of committee. We're getting them to the House floor. We're passing them on the House floor. And so now we just have to contend with the Senate to make them become law. What this means is a lot of the nefarious actions like USAID and a lot of the stuff that's happening, we're pulling back the reins on. And we need to continue to pull it back on, because in my opinion, we're still spending a little more than we should, a lot more than we should. And if we're going to bring inflation under control, if we're going to save these blessings of liberty for our kids and our grandkids, we got to address the debt issue. And so those are the kind of things we're continuing to work on as we continue to press forward. But it's been very interesting over the last few times. I thought I'd address a couple of the instances that came by recently, because if you were to watch the news, for those who have been tracking, when it came down to, for example, a few months ago, the One Big Beautiful Bill, it came down, if you were tracking that, it came down and there was like these 8 to 10 members who were sticks in the mud right at the end. I happen to be one of those 8 to 10. And so what the media would tell you is that we were like being obstinate, we were being obstructionist, we just didn't want to see the president's agenda pass. Well, a thing came out recently that just said, independent evaluated our voting record, said I'm, I think, the second most Texas member aligned with President Trump according to my voting record. So that lets you know where we're at. But what happened, if you will recall, we passed the bill out of the House, then it went to the Senate. The Senate said, oh, they only saved 1.5%. We're going to save 4%. Well, when they came back, they actually saved less than we did. And so they made some changes to the Senate bill. Then we got called to vote, and within 40 hours of it passing the Senate and passing the House, we were called back to DC, we booked our travel, we flew there were some flight delays, and some of us decided we actually wanted to read the Senate bill too before voting on it. I actually had a reporter come to me and said, why are you not voting yes on this bill? I'm like, well, I'm reading it first. Why don't you go ask the people who voted yes without reading it why they're voting yes without reading it? How about you write that story? Still haven't seen the story come out, but nor did that quote make it into any article. But what was happening? I literally got a text from somebody in the district that texted me the White House's page on the One Big Beautiful, just the top 10 talkers of what was in the bill, in case I didn't know. When I got the text, I happened to be sitting in the cabinet room with the president, the vice president, the OMB director, Carolyn Lovett, Russ Vogt. I mean, the whole team's there, and about 8-10 of us members sitting there going over the Senate bill. and going line by line to look at the Senate changes and make sure they weren't going to hamstring President Trump and his agenda. So a lot of times when you read the headlines like, oh, these people are legislative terrorists, that's really what's going on, is we're being the rear guard for the president, making sure his agenda isn't hamstrung by the swamp and the games that they play constantly. So that's the kind of thing that happens a lot, what's going on. Actually, the next week, that week was the longest, talk about unprecedented, that was the longest vote that ever happened in Congress until the very next week, when we had the longest vote that ever happened in Congress. So next week it was crypto week, and so we had crypto legislation come out. It's kind of a wonky issue, so I won't get into all the details here, but one of the key points to it is that it left open a door to a central bank digital currency. And if you haven't tracked what a central bank digital currency is, it's a great evil. And the way I explained it to the speaker and a number of other people that were there, there's bills that pass like, I wanted to save this much, we only saved this much, okay, I can get you there with you, we're going in the right direction at least. Central bank digital currency is one of those things to where if we were to allow that to happen and our kids and our grandkids had to deal with that, there's no amount of good I could put on the side of the ledger to make up for that. It would allow for a complete surveillance state. Basically, the government would be able to track every single dollar you would spend. It's what China's using right now to create sort of a social credit score. If your social credit score wouldn't be where it was, they could basically turn off your, how you spend money and do all those different kind of things and track your purchase through blockchain, basically. And that sounds real pie in the sky and dystopian and 1984 kind of, oh, that's crazy. But just a year ago, we had an administration who was working with credit cards companies to track your firearm purchases. They were working, and remember, if you had $600 in your account, they wanted to know every purchase that you were making and all this kind of stuff. So we're not that far removed from that kind of ideology. You give them that kind of power, and we are in a dystopian society. And so that when it came to that piece of legislation, once again, we found ourselves as one of the few holdouts. And so we're talking with them about this legislation, and we went over to meet with the Treasury, which if you've been there, the Treasury building is right by the White House. And so we're in there meeting with the Treasury. The president had been in Pennsylvania all day. And so we're meeting there with the Treasury. We're talking about this issue, what we can do to fix it, make sure that this doesn't happen. And then you see a few staffers look at their phone and walk out the door, and they come back in. They're like, he wants us over in the Oval. Well, the president had just landed from being out of this, out in Pennsylvania all day. And so we work our way over to the Oval. I had never, I had been in the Oval before, but I hadn't gone there from the Treasury building. And so the path there was a different path than you don't normally see on the tour. It was actually kind of cool. We go by the dumpsters. We entered in the basement of the building. There's like the kitchen there. I'm like, this is not on the tour. This is actually kind of cool. Got to see all the inner workings of the White House, and finally made our way upstairs to the Oval and met with the president about it and talked about those issues. And of course, this is something he's already aligned on. Nobody, if you met with the president, no one's twisting his arm to do anything, I can assure you. But this is something he was working on, and us just bringing like this is something the Federal Reserve actually right now is building. And whether, because they kind of quasi outside of government, and so they're working on building that, and we need to make sure that we have people who are stopping it. And anyway, so all that's to say is we got a commitment to get legislation on the House floor, which is passed already. We've got commitment to make sure that language gets put into every single bill that passes the House. So like we have the National Defense Authorization Act coming in. We will have provisions in there to do it. It will be in every must-pass bill until we get a ban on the central bank digital currency passed. And so these are the kind of things that are happening when you just read the headlines, and we're making sure we fight for the things, and we're not just we're reading through the legislation, we're working through it. But I got to tell you, working with the president is certainly fun and interesting. We were in the cabinet room, after one of those meetings, and Carolyn Lovett looked at us and she said, "Hey, by the way, this is the last time you're going to see these curtains. They're taking them out after this meeting." We're like, and I looked at her and said, "We going with gold?" She's like, "Yeah, how did you know?"
Probably real gold.
Yeah. Well, and to your point on the real gold, after one of those meetings, we took him into the White House. We went into the Oval Office, and he's meeting with us and took a couple pictures, of course. But then he gave us a challenge coin, and some of you know what challenge coins are. I have one, I don't have one on me, but my challenge coin has some golden, oh, I do have one. So I have some golden on my challenge coin. First of all, this is your average size for, his challenge coin is about that big. It's a little weighty. I meant to bring it with me, but I didn't. And he wanted to let us know. He's like, I want you to know, it's real gold. Real gold. But he was concerned because we have like gift limits, right? He's like, I'm not trying to bribe a congressman or anything. But if you do get in trouble, let me know. I'll pardon you. But he is. I couldn't imagine. I mean, it's just hard to imagine anyone ever being like him ever again, holding that office, at least in our lifetime. And what he's doing is really just been amazing. And we certainly have a lot of challenges ahead of us, but we had them coming into office, and we're addressing a lot of them. And I could turn this into a 45-minute lecture on all of those issues. I'll try not to do that, and I'll just open it up for questions. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. But I will say that I've been in the room with him when he's both very passionate about what needs to happen for the American people, but then also the side of him that I wish you all could see, where it's very human and a very compassionate side to him as well, as he's weighing all these issues and working for the best of the American people. And so it's, I think, good for you to know that that's what's in our Oval Office right now. It's just amazing. And does that mean I agree with him on 100%? No, but here's a man who basically took all of Western society, put on his back, and the kind of thing that he has faced, including being shot, to give us the opportunity and the hope of this country. I certainly have a lot of respect for that. And, there's something I think we can all take away from those kind of lessons. But anyway, I don't know how long I'm supposed to go, so anyway.
Questions?
Give me the hook.
We've got microphones for those of you that got questions.